Sagittarius. A matter from the past returns this weekend, and your soul is ready to face it. Sagittarius, if your heart has been feeling strangely restless lately, if old memories have been rising like soft waves you thought had already retreated, if a familiar name, a forgotten dream, or an unfinished chapter has been brushing against your spirit for no clear reason, then breathe gently. You are not imagining it. There is a quiet movement happening beneath the surface of your life, a subtle shifting of energies that has been preparing you for something important. And this weekend, that something begins to reveal itself. For years you've carried responsibilities on your shoulders, children growing into their own lives, aging parents who need your presence, a household that depends on your strength, and a heart that has learned to become its own source of courage. You've kept moving forward because that is your nature. You are the archer who seeks horizons, the soul who refuses to be trapped by the past. But in the midst of this journey, there were things you didn't have the luxury to confront. A goodbye that never truly ended. A dream you tucked away so that others could thrive. A version of yourself you silenced so you could be the responsible one. A wound you covered not because it healed, but because life demanded you to keep going. Now the universe, the one ruled by Jupiter, the very planet that protects you, guides you, expands you, is placing a gentle hand on your back and whispering, "It's time." Not time to suffer. Not time to reopen pain. But time to reclaim the parts of yourself you abandoned along the way. This weekend, a matter from your past returns. Not to pull you backward, but to complete a cycle your soul has been trying to close for years. You will feel the energy shift as if a door you once locked is opening from the inside, inviting you, not forcing you, to step in with a wiser heart, calmer breath, and a spirit that finally feels ready. Sagittarius, this moment isn't here to challenge your freedom. It's here to restore it. Chapter 1: The Energetic Return. Why the past is surfacing now. Sagittarius, the energy around you has been shifting like a soft but undeniable tide, pulling something from your past back into the shoreline of your awareness. It's subtle at first, a familiar feeling brushing against your chest, a dream holding onto a face you haven't seen in years, a quiet heaviness that doesn't belong to the present moment. Yet the closer we move toward this weekend, the more clearly you feel it. Something is returning. And not by accident. There is a spiritual law woven into your journey as a Sagittarius, one guided by Jupiter, a planet that rarely brings anything back unless it has become meaningful for your growth. Jupiter isn't the planet of punishment. It is the planet of expansion, wisdom, and soul evolution. When energy resurfaces in your life under Jupiter's eye, it means you have reached a level of maturity and emotional stability powerful enough to transform what once wounded you. This return isn't random. It's cosmic timing. For months, your spirit has been quietly preparing. The responsibilities of midlife have carved a deeper wisdom into you. Your patience is stronger, your boundaries clearer, your compassion richer. You're no longer the woman who rushed into situations or ran away from things that hurt too much. Life has tested you gently, then intensely, and you've passed each test by becoming softer in some places and braver in others. You may not have noticed the transformation, but the universe has. What comes back now is coming back because you are ready. There are moments in a Sagittarius woman's life when the past circles around, not to disturb, but to resolve. It's like an old book that fell off the shelf by itself, as if it wants to be read one final time so you can finally place it where it truly belongs. You might feel waves of déjà vu, or a sudden awareness that something is incomplete, waiting for your acknowledgement. These are not coincidences. They are soul signals. Perhaps you've recently found yourself thinking about someone from long ago without knowing why. Maybe an old desire resurfaced, the one you buried beneath the weight of caring for others. Or maybe an unresolved tension has been vibrating deep within your chest, urging you to look at the parts of your story that were left unfinished. This weekend, the universe opens a portal, not a dramatic one, but a gentle spiritual one, where past and present meet just long enough for healing to happen. And this is important. The past returns only when your soul is strong enough not to repeat it. It returns so you can reclaim what you lost, release what you no longer need, and repair what has been silently draining your energy for years. You may feel a little unsettled, as if you're standing between two worlds. That's completely natural. You're not stepping backward. You're gathering parts of yourself you didn't realize were missing. Sagittarius, your spirit is evolving. Your heart is wiser. Your emotional foundation is steadier. That is why the past is surfacing now, not to haunt you but to honor you, to return what belongs to you, to complete what was left open, to help you walk forward lighter, clearer and finally free. If you're ready, whisper to yourself softly, I trust what returns. I trust what heals. I trust myself. Chapter 2: The Wound Beneath the Surface. What you tried to leave behind. Sagittarius, there is something uniquely brave about you. You are the woman who keeps moving even when the road is steep, who holds her chin high even when her heart trembles. But with that bravery comes a quiet habit you rarely admit, even to yourself. You often move on before you truly heal. You don't do it out of avoidance. You do it out of survival. There were moments in your past when you simply didn't have the space, the time, or the emotional energy to sit with what hurt. You were raising children, holding the family together, tending to aging parents, or building a life that required every ounce of your strength. So when something broke, whether it was your heart, your hopes, or your sense of direction, you wrapped it up, placed it in a corner of your spirit, and kept walking. But the thing about Sagittarius energy is this: you are ruled by fire, not denial. And what is buried in fire does not stay buried. It glows quietly, waiting for the right moment to rise again. This chapter from your past, the one returning this weekend, is connected to a wound you didn't heal at the moment it was created. Maybe you told yourself you didn't care. Maybe you convinced yourself it wasn't worth the pain. Maybe you decided that moving on was easier than staying long enough to understand what truly happened. But your soul never forgot. For some Sagittarius women, this wound may involve a person who left abruptly, or someone you had to leave behind before you were ready. A love story that dissolved without explanation. A friendship that ended on a note of confusion. A relationship where you gave more than you received until you couldn't anymore. For others, it might be a dream, the one life forced you to postpone. The career you could have pursued. The talent you tucked away because the world told you to be practical. The part of you that used to feel wild, inspired, unafraid. And for many of you, this wound is deeper than any single person or event. It is the version of yourself you abandoned. The one who used to laugh easily. The one who loved boldly. The one who believed she could do anything. The one who didn't apologize for wanting more. As you stepped deeper into responsibilities, motherhood, partnership, caregiving, survival, you became wise, but you also became careful. You learned to protect your heart by keeping certain doors closed. And yet, deep down, you always felt the tug of unfinished stories, as if a piece of your soul remained in a previous chapter, waiting for you to return. That is why you feel the emotional weight now. Not because the past is haunting you, but because the past is asking for completion. Asking to be acknowledged. Asking to be healed. And Sagittarius, you can no longer outrun what your spirit needs you to reclaim. The wound resurfacing this weekend isn't here to punish you. It's here to free you. Because every story left unresolved drains your light just a little. Just enough to keep you from feeling fully alive. You've learned how to smile through heartbreak, how to carry on through exhaustion, how to stay strong for everyone else. But this is a moment to be strong for yourself. So breathe deeply. Let your shoulders soften. Your soul is guiding you back to a place where something was left undone, not so you can relive the pain, but so you can finally release it. This time, you're not the same woman you were when it first happened. This time, you're wiser. This time, you're steadier. This time, you're ready. Chapter 3: When the Past Knocks. Signs, synchronicities, and what this weekend holds. Sagittarius, as we move closer to this weekend, the air around you carries a subtle electricity, almost like the feeling right before rain touches the earth. Something is shifting, something is aligning, and deep within your spirit you can already sense it. You may not be able to name it yet, but it is there. A quiet vibration, an inner stirring, a pull toward something that once mattered. And if you've been wondering whether these sensations are random, let me tell you gently. They are not. They are signs. They are synchronicities. They are the universe preparing you for a moment of return. In the past few days, perhaps you have noticed odd patterns. Someone's name keeps appearing in unexpected places. A song you haven't heard in decades suddenly follows you from room to room. A memory drifts in, not sharp enough to hurt, but clear enough to remind you of a chapter you thought was closed. Maybe you've been dreaming of people you haven't seen in years, waking with a heaviness you can't quite explain, or feeling a tug in your chest that whispers, "Look here, something is coming." Sagittarius, this is your intuition speaking. Your beautiful, untamed inner compass that has never once led you astray. As women, especially in the middle chapters of life, we are taught to silence these whispers because they seem impractical or overly emotional. But your intuition is not a fantasy. It is the oldest truth in your soul. And right now, it is preparing you for a moment of profound clarity. This weekend carries the energy of a portal. Not the dramatic kind you see in stories, but the spiritual kind that opens quietly, like a curtain lifting to reveal what has always been waiting behind it. Imagine standing in a dimly lit room you've known for years, and suddenly a soft ray of light begins to seep in, illuminating objects you forgot were there. This is what the universe is doing for you now. Revealing, not surprising. Clarifying, not confusing. The return coming your way could take many shapes. It may arrive as a message, short, simple, unexpectedly gentle. It may appear in the form of a person you thought you had moved past, showing up at the exact moment your heart is steady enough to face them. Or the return may not be a person at all. It may be a dream you set aside 20 years ago, resurfacing with a force that refuses to be ignored. It may be a forgotten passion, a desire you once buried under duty and responsibility, now asking whether you are finally ready to give it breath again. What matters is not the form. What matters is the feeling. Because when this past energy returns, you will recognize it instantly. The heart always remembers what the mind tries to forget. And here's the truth you must understand. What returns this weekend does not return with chaos. It returns with clarity. It returns with purpose. It returns because you have reached a season of life where your emotional landscape has become wiser, calmer, more capable of holding the truth without losing itself. You are no longer the impulsive archer who shoots an arrow before thinking. You have become the woman who pauses, breathes, listens, and responds with depth rather than fire. There will be a moment, perhaps sudden, perhaps gentle, when everything lines up. A conversation that feels eerily familiar. A coincidence too perfect to ignore. A decision that arises from the deepest part of your spirit. You will feel the air change even if no one else notices. This is the knock of the past. And Sagittarius, you will know it instantly, because your soul has been waiting for it. Some of you may feel nervous at this idea. You might fear that the past will bring back pain, or that confronting something old will destabilize the fragile balance you've worked so hard to maintain. But hear me. The universe would never bring this back while you were weak. It brings it back now because you are strong. Brings it now because you are prepared. It brings it now because your heart is no longer afraid of its own truth. As this weekend unfolds, allow your intuition to guide you gently. Notice the shifts. Pay attention to the feelings. If your chest tightens, ask what it is trying to protect. If your heart softens, ask what it is longing to remember. If your eyes fill with tears without warning, let them fall. Your spirit is releasing something old so it can welcome something new. The beauty of midlife, something Sagittarius women often underestimate, is that you finally possess the emotional literacy that youth lacks. You now understand nuance, silence, timing, and the unspoken language of the heart. This return is not asking you to relive anything. It is asking you to reinterpret it, to see the past not as a wound but as a teacher, to allow the story to shift into a form that nourishes you instead of draining you. There will be no need to force, no need to chase, no need to fear. The universe is orchestrating this moment with precision. Everything will unfold exactly as it needs to, in the pace that your spirit can handle. You may find yourself at the right place at the right time without even planning it. You may hear a truth you needed but never expected. You may feel a release that frees your heart in ways you didn't know you were still bound. This weekend is not about reopening old chapters. It is about rewriting the final sentence in a way that gives you peace. It is about understanding what you couldn't understand then. It is about closing the energetic threads that have followed you quietly for years, pulling gently at your stability. And when this moment arrives, you will sense it in your breath, in your chest, in the warm, familiar ache of recognition. Sagittarius, something is coming. Not to shake you, but to steady you. Not to hurt you, but to heal you. Not to drag you backward, but to give you the freedom that only truth can bring. When the past knocks this weekend, open the door with a brave but gentle heart. What enters is not a storm. It is the final piece of clarity your soul has been waiting for. Chapter 4: Choosing Healing Over Fear. What Sagittarius must do now. Sagittarius, when the past finally steps across the threshold this weekend, you may feel your breath catch for a moment, not out of fear but out of recognition. It is a strange thing, isn't it? How something that once felt so distant can suddenly feel close again. Almost as if time folded itself in half and brought two versions of you face to face. And in that moment, when the echo of an old story meets the strength of the woman you have become, you will stand at a crossroads. One path leads back into old patterns of avoidance, pride, and self-protection. The other leads into healing, freedom, and the gentle reclamation of all the parts of yourself you left behind. This chapter, this encounter, is not asking you to be fearless. Fear is not the enemy. Fear is simply the hesitation of a heart that has known loss. Courage for you is not the absence of fear. Courage is choosing healing despite the fear. It is allowing the truth to rise, even when part of you wants to swallow it again. It is letting your heart speak in the language it has been holding inside for years. And so the most important thing you must do now is something Sagittarius energy rarely finds easy. You must soften. You must let yourself be vulnerable, even if that vulnerability feels like stepping out into the open without armor. You have spent so many years being the strong one, keeping the peace, carrying responsibilities, holding the family together, protecting those you love, standing tall even when the ground beneath you trembled. But this moment is not asking for your strength. It is asking for your sincerity. It is asking for your tenderness. It is asking for the version of you that speaks truth without hiding behind pride or deflection. When the past returns, you may feel emotions rise quickly. Anger, longing, confusion, tenderness, regret, hope. Let them rise, Sagittarius. Let them breathe. But do not let them spill into impulsive action. The woman you are today knows how to pause. She knows how to hold her feelings with wisdom. She knows how to slow the fire just enough to see clearly. If a conversation unfolds, let it unfold gently. Listen without preparing your defense. Speak without sharpening your truth into a weapon. There is no victory in proving you were right. The victory lies in healing what has lived unspoken inside you. Healing is not about winning. Healing is about freeing. And perhaps the most powerful act you will face this weekend is forgiveness. Not the kind that demands reunion or closeness. Not the kind that erases the past. But the kind that says, I choose peace over resentment. I choose clarity over confusion. I choose myself over the weight of this story. Forgiveness is not about the other person. It is about releasing your spirit from the emotional contract that has tied you to this wound for far too long. But forgiveness may take different forms for each Sagittarius woman. For some, it may look like offering an apology you never had the courage to speak. For others, it may look like hearing an apology you never expected to receive. And for many, it may simply be acknowledging the truth of what hurt you, and then gently letting that truth go. Remember this. Healing does not require reopening the relationship. Healing does not mean going back. Healing does not mean repeating the story. Healing means ending it with grace. Of course, there is another possibility, one that only reveals itself in rare cases: renewal. Not a return to what once was, but the dawning of something new built upon the wisdom of who you have become. If this is your path, you will feel it in the softness of your chest, in the steadiness of your breath, in the absence of fear. Renewal does not come with chaos. It comes with calm. Feels like recognition without ache. But whether this moment brings closure, clarity, or renewal, all three paths lead you toward the same destination: liberation. And Sagittarius, liberation is your birthright. For too long, you have carried the weight of unfinished stories. You have pushed away your own needs to hold space for others. You have buried your tenderness beneath layers of strength. But this weekend, the universe hands you a key, not to open something but to close it. To seal the chapter with love, not avoidance. To choose your healing with intention. To reclaim the energy that has been stuck in this story for years. And as you do, something extraordinary happens. You become lighter. Not in the physical sense but in the spiritual one. A heaviness you have carried without naming begins to dissolve. Your chest feels more open. Your mind grows quieter. Your intuition becomes clearer. Your dreams stretch wider. You begin to feel a freedom you have not felt in years. A freedom to desire, to imagine, to expand again. This is Jupiter's gift to you. This is the reward for your courage. This is the moment your soul has been preparing for. Because once this chapter is healed, your energy no longer circles backward. It moves forward boldly, beautifully, into the next phase of your life. A phase where joy feels possible again, where hope feels safe again, where your heart feels capable of opening without bracing for impact. Sagittarius, this weekend is not a test. It is a release. It is not a punishment. It is a completion. It is not a return to the old. It is a clearing for everything new that has been trying to enter your life, but hasn't had space until now. So when the moment arrives, whether through a message, a memory, a conversation, or a quiet knowing, place your hand over your heart and breathe. You are ready. You are more ready than you think. You do not have to rush. You do not have to react. You simply have to be present with yourself. Let healing happen to you. Let clarity find you. Let courage rise within you like a sunrise you didn't expect but deeply needed. And as this chapter closes, let these words settle softly into your spirit. I release what was. I honor what remains. I step forward free. Sagittarius, now that you have walked through the emotional landscape of this journey, through memory and intuition, through recognition and truth, you stand at the edge of something sacred. This weekend is not simply another moment in time. It is a threshold, a passage, a quiet but powerful initiation into a freer version of yourself. You may not fully realize it yet, but everything you have felt rising inside you these past days has been preparing you for this final release. There is a softness in the air around you now, almost as if the universe itself is exhaling with you. The past has approached gently, not to frighten you, but to remind you that your life is a constellation of every version you have ever been. And now those versions are coming home, each one bringing a piece of wisdom, a fragment of strength, a scrap of memory you needed to reclaim. You are not closing a chapter in order to forget. You are closing it in order to integrate. Sagittarius, you have lived so much life. You have carried weight that others never saw. You have shown up again and again, even when your own heart felt empty. And through it all you kept moving forward. But forward does not always mean free. Sometimes forward simply means surviving. And this weekend, the universe gently guides you away from survival and into sovereignty, into liberation, into wholeness. Think of everything you've experienced through the years. Every heartbreak, every dream delayed, every responsibility you shouldered because no one else could. Think of the moments when you had to swallow your pain so your family could feel safe. The moments when you hid your tears because someone needed your strength more than you needed your own softness. These choices shaped you. They made you wise, resilient, capable. But they also left pieces of you scattered in the past, in places you never returned to pick them up. This moment, this return of the past, is not about reopening wounds. It is about gathering yourself. It is about stitching together the fragments that were left behind. It is about reclaiming every part of your soul, so you can step into the next chapter with your full light. And that light, Sagittarius, it is powerful. When you stop running from what hurts, your fire stops flickering and begins to rise again. When you stop avoiding the truth, your intuition becomes sharp. When you stop hiding your vulnerability, your courage becomes effortless. You return to the essence of who you are. A seeker, a healer, a wanderer with a sacred purpose, a woman ruled by a planet that insists on growth, expansion, and renewal. This weekend will offer you a moment of stunning clarity. It might be a conversation, a realization, a single breath where everything aligns. It might be a soft release that falls through you like warm rain. It might be the sudden understanding that what you feared confronting was far gentler than the fear itself. Past energy rarely holds the sharpness we remember. What cuts us deepest is not the memory but the avoidance. And so, as this moment arrives, allow yourself to meet it with the grace of the woman you've become. You don't need to be grand. You don't need to be perfect. You only need to be present. When the truth reveals itself, let it speak. When your heart stirs, let it feel. When your spirit shifts, let it guide you. The universe is not asking for performance. It is asking for presence. And here is something sacred for you to remember. This is not the end of anything. This is the beginning of everything. Closing a chapter does not diminish your story. It strengthens it. It opens the way for new love, new possibilities, new self-awareness. When you release the past, even with trembling hands, You make room for the future to finally reach you. And Sagittarius, the future is already making its way toward you with a quiet but steady devotion. Over the coming weeks, you will feel an expansion, a loosening in your chest, a clarity in your mind, a deeper sense of trust in your intuition. You will make decisions more easily. You will speak your truth more gently. You will wake with a sense of inner spaciousness that feels unfamiliar but beautiful. This is your spirit integrating the healing you allowed. This is Jupiter reminding you that every ending is simply a widening horizon. And you will begin to notice things. Your smile softens. Your breath deepens. Your heart opens in small but meaningful ways. Your energy becomes lighter, more fluid, more aligned. You stop carrying what isn't yours. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You stop apologizing for wanting more. Because the woman who leaves this weekend is not the same woman who entered it. She is more whole, more aware, more anchored in her truth, more prepared to create a life that reflects the depth of her spirit, not the weight of her past. So let this be your quiet ceremony of closure. Place your hand over your heart for a moment and feel the warmth there. The pulse of a woman who has survived, grown, and risen through every challenge life placed before her. You are not fragile. You are not broken. You are not defined by what hurt you. You are defined by the way you choose to rise from it. Whisper to yourself softly, like a prayer carried on Jupiter's breath. I release what no longer holds me. I honor what my soul has learned. I welcome the freedom that awaits me. And as you step into the days ahead, trust that the universe is already rearranging itself to meet the woman you are becoming. Trust that what leaves does so with blessing. Trust that what remains is meant for your expansion. Trust that what arrives next will meet you in the fullness of your renewed self. Sagittarius, this is your moment of liberation. Your soul has waited years for this breath of freedom, and now it is here. Walk forward with a heart unburdened, a spirit unchained, and a future wide open before you.